The rain poured down on Neo-Tokyo's neon-lit streets as Marcus Chen hurried home from another long day at the terraforming facility. His worn boots splashed through puddles, reflecting the colorful signs above. At 32, he was one of the youngest lead engineers in the city, but tonight he felt every year of his age weighing him down. As he turned down a quieter street, something caught his eye. A figure huddled in a dark alley, shivering under a tattered cloak. Marcus usually ignored the city's many homeless. There were too many to help them all. But something about this one seemed different. The figure moved slightly, and a soft blue glow leaked from beneath the cloak. Marcus stopped walking. That glow, it couldn't be. "Are you okay?" he called out, taking a few careful steps closer. The figure jerked at his voice, pressing deeper into the shadows. "Please," came a whispered response. "Please do not hurt me." The voice was melodic, with an accent Marcus had only heard in news broadcasts. His suspicions grew stronger. "I won't hurt you. Are you a celestial?" There was a long pause before the figure slowly stood. The cloak fell back slightly, revealing a face that made Marcus catch his breath. Her skin was pale blue, seeming to glow from within. Her eyes were large and silver, lacking pupils but somehow still expressing deep sadness. Delicate markings traced patterns across her cheeks, marking her as one of the fallen celestial noble houses. "I am called Lyra," she said, her voice trembling. "And I need help." Marcus looked around nervously. Celestials were rare on Earth, especially since their empires collapsed 5 years ago. Most had fled to distant colonies, too proud to live among the lesser races they once ruled. Finding one alone in an alley was unprecedented. "What kind of help?" he asked cautiously. Lyra took a step forward, then fell to her knees, bowing her head. "Please, kind sir, I beg you to take me as your servant. I have nowhere else to go." Marcus stared in shock. "Servant? But that's not. We don't do that here on Earth." "I have skills," she pleaded, still not looking up. "I can clean, cook, manage household affairs. I even know the old sciences of my people. I can be useful." Her voice cracked on the last word. Rain dripped from Marcus's jacket as he tried to process the situation. Here was a member of a species that had once ruled half the galaxy, begging to be his maid. It felt wrong on so many levels. "Look," he said gently, "I can't take you as a servant. But—" he glanced at the increasingly heavy rain and sighed. "I have a spare room. You can stay there while we figure something out." Lyra finally looked up, her silver eyes wide with disbelief. "You would shelter me without demanding service?" "That's how we do things on Earth," Marcus said, offering his hand to help her up. "Come on, you're getting soaked." Lyra hesitated for a moment before taking his hand. As she stood, something metallic fell from her cloak, a small disc covered in complex engravings. She quickly snatched it up. "My family's last treasure," she explained quietly. "Technical knowledge from the height of our civilization. It's yours if you'll have me." Marcus shook his head. "Keep it. If you're staying with me, it's as a guest, not a servant. And definitely not as a purchase." As they walked through the rain toward his apartment, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to become much more complicated. He didn't know anything about helping alien refugees, and he was pretty sure this violated several immigration laws. But looking at Lyra's hopeful, nervous expression, he knew he couldn't have left her in that alley. Sometimes, he thought, the right choice was also the difficult one. Marcus's apartment felt different with a celestial in it. Lyra stood awkwardly in the middle of his living room, water dripping from her cloak onto the floor. Her faint blue glow cast gentle shadows on the walls. "Let me get you some towels," Marcus said, heading to the bathroom. When he returned, he found Lyra on her knees, trying to clean the water with her sleeve. "Oh no, please stop." He rushed forward. "You don't need to do that." "But I have made a mess in your home," Lyra said, confusion clear in her silver eyes. "It is my duty to clean it." Marcus handed her the towels. "Here, dry yourself first. And remember what I said. You're a guest, not a servant. Lyra accepted the towels but looked troubled. I do not understand. In my culture, one must always repay kindness with service. How else can I prove my worth? By being yourself, Marcus said simply. He went to the kitchen and started making hot coffee. Want some? It's a human drink that helps warm you up. Lyra followed him, clutching the towels. Should I not be the one preparing drinks for you? Marcus sighed. This was going to be harder than he thought. Look, on Earth, we believe everyone has equal worth. Your value isn't measured by how well you serve others. Equal worth. Lyra repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. But how do you know your place in society? We don't have fixed places, Marcus explained, pouring 2 cups of coffee. We believe people should be free to choose their own path. As they sat at his small kitchen table, Marcus noticed Lyra studying how he held his cup, then copying his movements exactly. She took a sip and her eyes widened. This is pleasant, she said, sounding surprised. Then she looked guilty, as if enjoying something was wrong. Tell me about your work, she said quickly, changing the subject. I noticed the terraforming facility insignia on your jacket. Marcus brightened. I'm working on a project to make Mars more habitable. It's challenging work, especially with the current atmospheric processors. You are using atmospheric processors. Lyra interrupted, then immediately covered her mouth. I apologize for speaking out of turn. No, please continue, Marcus encouraged. What about the processors? Lyra hesitated, then spoke softly. The Celestial Empire. We developed more efficient methods centuries ago. Your current technology is primitive. She flinched at her own words. I apologize. I should not criticize. Are you kidding? This is fantastic. Marcus grabbed a tablet from the counter. Could you explain the better method? For the next hour, Lyra drew complex diagrams and explained concepts that made Marcus's head spin. Her knowledge was incredible, but every few minutes she would catch herself and try to return to a more servile attitude. I should prepare your evening meal now, she said finally, standing up. Actually, I was thinking we could order takeout. Have you ever tried Earth food? Lyra shook her head. In the refugee camps, we ate only basic nutrition packs. Marcus pulled up a delivery app. Well, that changes tonight. How about we start with something simple, like pizza? Pizza. Lyra tested the word. Is it proper for someone like me to eat your special foods? It's just cheese and bread, mostly, Marcus laughed. And yes, it's proper. In fact, he had an idea. If you want to learn Earth customs, sharing meals as equals is an important one. Lyra sat back down slowly. I will. Try to learn your ways. But please be patient. Everything here is so different from what I was taught. Different isn't always bad, Marcus said gently. Now let me introduce you to the wonder of pepperoni. As they waited for the food, Marcus noticed Lyra's glow seemed a bit brighter. Maybe, he thought, she was finally starting to relax. It was a small step, but a start. A week had passed since Lyra arrived. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, staring at his tablet's newsfeed. The headline read, Celestial refugee numbers rise as former empire continues to crumble. Your morning beverage is ready, Lyra said, placing a cup of coffee in front of him. Despite his constant reminders about being equals, she still tried to help however she could. At least she now sat down to join him instead of standing in the corner. Thanks, Marcus said, then noticed her troubled expression as she looked at the news. Want to talk about it? Lyra's inner glow dimmed slightly. Something Marcus had learned happened when she was sad. It is difficult to see my people like this. We once ruled thousands of worlds. Now we hide in shadows. What really happened? Marcus asked gently. The news reports never gave the full story. Lyra wrapped her hands around her own coffee cup, a habit she'd picked up from Marcus. We destroyed ourselves, she said quietly. Our pride was our downfall. She took a sip of coffee before continuing. For 10,000 years, we believed ourselves superior to all other species. We had a strict system, nobles at the top, then scholars, warriors, workers, and at the bottom, those we conquered. Sounds rough, Marcus commented. My father. Lyra's voice caught. He was different. As a high noble, he saw how our rigid ways were holding us back. Other species were catching up to our technology, developing new ideas, while we remained frozen in tradition. Her glow flickered like a candle in wind. He proposed changes, equal rights for lower castes, learning from other species, trading fairly instead of demanding tribute. She laughed bitterly. Such simple things, yet they were seen as heresy. What happened to him? Marcus asked, though he feared he knew the answer. The other noble houses turned against us. They said we were corrupted by foreign ideas. Lyra's hands trembled. They stripped us of everything, made us an example. My father, they gave him the choice. The choice, death or exile. He chose exile to protect me. But the shame followed us. Even among refugees, former nobles who embrace change are seen as traitors. She looked down at her cup. That is why I could not stay in the refugee camps. Some recognized my house markings. They blamed us for starting the collapse. Marcus frowned. But surely they see now that change was needed. Some do, mostly the younger ones, but many cling to the old ways, even in poverty. They would rather starve with pride than thrive by changing. Lyra touched the markings on her face. These once meant I was among the highest of our people. Now they mark me as an outcast. Can't you hide them? No. They are part of our biology, like my glow. It is why I needed shelter so desperately. I cannot hide what I am. Marcus reached across the table and gently took her hand. Hey, look at me. He waited until her silver eyes met his. What your father did was brave. He saw the truth and tried to save your people from themselves. That's not shameful. Lyra's glow brightened slightly. You sound like him. He always said that true nobility comes from actions, not birth. Smart man, Marcus smiled. Speaking of actions, want to help me with something? The terraforming project is stuck on some atmospheric calculations, and after what you showed me about celestial methods, you want my help. Officially? Lyra looked stunned. Why not? You know more about atmospheric manipulation than anyone on my team. We'd be stupid not to use your knowledge. For the first time since he met her, Lyra's glow blazed bright enough to light the whole room. Then she caught herself and dimmed. But what will your colleagues say about working with a celestial? An outcast one at that. Marcus stood up, grinning. Let's find out. After all, Earth is all about giving people chances to prove themselves, ready to show them what you can do. Lyra stood as well, straightening her shoulders. Yes, she said firmly. I believe I am. Marcus knew something was wrong the moment he stepped out of the terraforming facility. The street was quieter than usual, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He quickened his pace, thinking of Lyra waiting at home. Over the past 2 weeks, she had been helping him remotely with the Mars project. Her knowledge was incredible. She had already solved problems that had stumped his team for months. But today, something felt off. A shadow moved in the corner of his eye. Marcus turned quickly, but saw nothing. Just empty street and neon signs. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. His phone buzzed. A message from Lyra. Someone was at the door. They knew my name. Marcus broke into a run. When he reached his apartment, he found Lyra huddled in the corner of the living room, her blue glow barely visible. She looked up as he entered, her silver eyes wide with fear. They found me, she whispered. Who? Marcus asked, quickly locking the door. A reclaimer. Lyra's voice shook. They hunt those who corrupt celestial culture. I saw their mark on the note they left. She handed Marcus a small, shimmering card. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, glowing faintly red. What does it say? It says I have betrayed my people by working with humans. Lyra translated. By sharing our knowledge. They say I must return to the proper path or face punishment. Marcus felt cold anger rising in his chest. You're not going anywhere. We'll call the police. No. Lyra jumped up. Human authorities cannot help. Reclaimers are trained to avoid detection, and they never stop hunting their targets. A soft thud from the balcony made them both freeze. Through the glass door, they saw a tall figure in dark robes. Unlike Lyra's gentle blue glow, this celestial radiated a harsh red light. Sister Lyra. The figure spoke, its voice oddly melodious despite the menace in its words. You dishonor us all. Marcus stepped between Lyra and the balcony door. She's not going with you. The reclaimer tilted its head. Human, this does not concern you. We merely seek to preserve our culture's purity by forcing people to live by rules that destroyed your empire. Marcus shot back. Our empire fell because we strayed from tradition. The reclaimer said, those like Lyra, who share our sacred knowledge with lesser beings. Stop. Lyra's voice rang out suddenly. She stepped forward, her glow strengthening. You speak of tradition, but you forget our highest law. The law of sanctuary. The reclaimer went still. This human has given me true sanctuary, Lyra continued. Not just shelter, but acceptance. Respect. Things our empire forgot how to give. You would choose their ways over ours. I choose progress over pride. Growth over stagnation. Lyra's voice grew stronger. And by our oldest laws, you cannot take me from sanctuary without my consent. The reclaimer was silent for a long moment. Then it bowed slightly. You speak truth about the law. But know this, if you leave this sanctuary, we will be waiting. And there are many ways to pressure a host into withdrawing protection. With that threat hanging in the air, the figure stepped back and seemed to melt into the shadows. Marcus quickly closed the curtains. Lyra, what did he mean about pressure? They will try to cause trouble for you, she said miserably. At your work, in public, they will make helping me cost you dearly. Marcus thought about his career, his life's work with the terraforming project. Then he looked at Lyra, who had taught him more in 2 weeks than he'd learned in years. Let them try, he said firmly. You're not alone in this anymore. Lyra's glow brightened slightly. Why? Why risk so much for me? Because that's what friends do, Marcus said simply. Now let's figure out how to deal with our new problem. Outside, the city's neon lights flickered against the dark sky, while inside, human and celestial began planning their next move. The terraforming facility's main conference room was packed. Today was Marcus's big presentation about the new atmospheric processing method. What nobody except him knew was that the revolutionary ideas came from Lyra. Remember, he had told her that morning, stay hidden at home. The reclaimer might use this presentation to cause trouble. But as Marcus stood at the podium, facing the eager crowd of scientists and investors, he noticed a familiar blue glow from the back of the room. His heart skipped. Lyra had come anyway. The new process uses a catalytic conversion method, Marcus explained, showing complex diagrams on the screen. Early tests show it's 3 times more efficient than our current. A harsh voice cut through the room. Tell them where you really got these ideas, human. The red glowing reclaimer stepped out from behind a pillar. Gasps filled the room as people recognized a celestial. Security guards moved forward, but the reclaimer raised his hands. I mean no harm. I merely seek truth. This human stole our sacred knowledge from a confused noble daughter. Marcus gripped the podium. That's not true. No. A clear voice rang out. It is not. Lyra stood up from her seat in the back. Her blue glow was strong and steady as she walked to the front of the room. The audience murmured in amazement at seeing 2 celestials. I shared this knowledge freely, Lyra announced, because it can help both our peoples. The reclaimer's red glow pulsed angrily. You betray our ways. Knowledge is power. Power must be controlled. Knowledge is life, Lyra countered, and life must grow and change. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Marcus saw the reclaimer pull something from his robe, a small device pulsing with red energy. If you will not protect our secrets, the reclaimer growled, then they must be destroyed. The device shot out tendrils of red energy, attacking the facility's computer systems. Screens went dark. Alarms blared. No, Marcus shouted. That's connected to the atmospheric processors. If they fail, the test chamber will explode. Lyra finished. Without hesitation, she ran to the main control panel. The reclaimer moved to stop her, but Marcus tackled him. They crashed into chairs as people fled the room. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, her glow brightening as she worked. The override isn't responding. You cannot stop this, the reclaimer said, pushing Marcus away. Better to destroy the knowledge than let it be misused. Misused? Lyra's voice shook with anger. Like you misuse our traditions. Our ways were meant to help people, not control them. Her glow suddenly blazed like a blue sun. She pressed her hands flat on the control panel. Pure energy flowed from her into the system. Lyra, stop, Marcus called. That much energy could kill you. Some things are worth the risk, she gasped. The red energy from the reclaimer's device fought against Lyra's blue power. The air crackled with their clash. Then Lyra spoke, not in English, but in the musical language of her people. The reclaimer's eyes widened. The first law, he whispered, life before pride. His device flickered and died. The facility's systems stabilized. Lyra collapsed, but Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. I remember now, the reclaimer said quietly. That law, we forgot it long ago. In our pride, we forgot why we gathered knowledge in the first place. Security finally burst in, but the reclaimer was already gone, leaving only a fading red glow. Lyra opened her eyes weakly. Is everyone safe? Thanks to you, Marcus smiled. Though I think we have some explaining to do. He looked up to see the room filling again, with scientists, security, and reporters all staring at them. Phones recorded everything. Their secret was out. Lyra's glow strengthened slightly. Perhaps it's time for humans and Celestials to work together openly. Together, Marcus agreed, helping her stand. Like equals. Around them, people began to applaud. The video of Lyra saving the terraforming facility went viral within hours. Marcus watched the view count climb into the millions as he sat beside Lyra's hospital bed. How are you feeling? He asked, noticing her glow was still dimmer than usual. Better, Lyra said, sitting up slowly. The doctors say using that much energy was dangerous, but I will recover. She looked at the news playing on the room's screen. It seems I am not the only one who wished to speak out. The news showed groups of young Celestials gathering outside refugee centers worldwide. They all glowed with different colors. Blue, green, purple, breaking the traditional red-only rule of their old empire. Your actions gave them courage, Marcus said. Look. He held up his tablet, showing messages flooding social media. If a noble can choose change, so can we. Working with humans isn't shameful. Knowledge should be shared. Lyra's glow brightened as she read. I never thought. I believe I was alone in wanting change. A soft knock interrupted them. A young celestial woman stood in the doorway, glowing gentle green. Lady Lyra, she said hesitantly, could we speak with you? Behind her stood 5 more Celestials, all young, all glowing in different colors. They wore modern Earth clothes instead of traditional robes. Please, just Lyra. Lyra smiled. Come in. They entered shyly, but their questions came quickly once they started talking. Is it true you're helping with terraforming? Did you really fight a reclaimer? Can you teach us about human ways? Marcus watched Lyra's face light up as she talked with them. She was no longer the frightened refugee he found in an alley. She spoke with confidence, answering questions and sharing her experiences. But their happy meeting was interrupted by another news alert. The Reclaimers had released a statement. Those who abandon our ways will face consequences. Celestial purity must be preserved at all costs. They're scared, one of the young Celestials said. They see us changing, and they're scared. They should be, another added. We won't live in fear anymore. Lyra raised her hand for quiet. We must be careful. The Reclaimers are dangerous. A crash of breaking glass cut her off. Something dark and smoking landed in the middle of the room. Gas. Marcus shouted. Everyone out. They rushed from the room as thick purple smoke filled it. In the corridor, hospital security ran toward them while alarms blared. Is everyone okay? Lyra asked, counting heads quickly. Yes, but one of the young Celestials pointed at the window at the end of the hall. 3 Reclaimers hovered outside, their red glow harsh against the night sky. Their message was clear. Nowhere was safe. But then something unexpected happened. The young Celestials stepped forward, forming a line in front of Lyra. Their different colored glows combined into a rainbow barrier. We protect our own, the green glowing woman said firmly. The Reclaimers hesitated, clearly surprised by this unified resistance. Marcus touched Lyra's arm. You're not alone anymore. None of you are. Lyra straightened, her blue glow strengthening. She stepped up beside the young ones. We are the future of our people, she called out to the Reclaimers. You can either accept change or be left behind by it. The Reclaimers floated there for a long moment. Then, without a word, they'd vanished into the night. They'll be back, Marcus warned. Yes, Lyra agreed, but we'll be ready. She turned to the young Celestials. We need to organize, create safe places for others who want to break free. And she smiled at Marcus. Continue working with our human allies. Together, the young ones said in unison, their glows brightening. Looking at their determined faces, Marcus realized he was watching history change. The old empire was truly dying, but something new and beautiful was being born from its ashes. And it all started with one lonely refugee who dared to ask for help. The terraforming facility buzzed with activity. In the month since the hospital incident, it had become more than just a research center. Now it was also a safe haven for Celestials who wanted to work alongside humans. Marcus watched from his office as Lyra taught a group of young Celestials about atmospheric science. Their different colored glows made the lab look like a rainbow. They learned quickly, his boss commented, joining him at the window. Production is up 200% since we started the integration program. Lyra was right. Marcus smiled. Knowledge grows when it's shared. But their peaceful moment was shattered by screaming from outside. Red light flooded through the windows. They're here, someone shouted. The Reclaimers. Dozens of red glowing figures descended from the sky, surrounding the facility. Their leader's voice boomed through the air. This ends today. Surrender the traitors, or we will cleanse this place of corruption. Marcus ran to the main lab where Lyra was already organizing the younger Celestials. Get to this safe room, she ordered them. Remember the plan we practiced. But we want to fight. The green glowing woman from the hospital protested. The best fight is surviving to build a better future, Lyra said firmly. Go. As the young ones reluctantly headed for safety, Marcus checked the facility's defenses. After the hospital attack, they had installed special shields designed to block celestial energy. They're attacking the shield, a security officer reported. Red energy crackled against the invisible barrier. Lyra's face was grim. They're stronger than before. They've gathered all their remaining forces. Why? Marcus asked. Why risk everything on this attack? Because we're winning, Lyra said simply. Every day, more Celestials choose freedom over tradition. The Reclaimers are losing their power. The shield flickered. Outside, The reclaimers raised their hands in unison, channeling more energy. "The shield can't take much more," someone shouted. Lyra turned to Marcus, her silver eyes determined. "I have an idea, but it's dangerous." "Your ideas usually are," he smiled. "What do you need?" "Connect me to the facility's power system. I can create a feedback loop with their energy." Marcus's smile faded. "Like at the hospital. That almost killed you. This time, I'm not alone." The young Celestials had returned, forming a circle around Lyra. "We won't hide," the green glowing woman said. "We stand together." Before Marcus could argue, the shield shattered. Reclaimers poured into the facility. "Now," Lyra shouted. The young Celestials joined hands. Their different colored glows merged into pure white light. Lyra pressed her hands against the main power console. The Reclaimers' red energy clashed with their combined power. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the struggle. Marcus ran to the console, fighting through the energy storm. "The system's overloading. Keep it stable." Lyra gasped. "Just a little longer." The Reclaimers pushed harder, their red glow intensifying. But then something strange happened. Their perfect formation began to waver. Young Celestials in hiding were emerging, adding their power to Lyra's side. More importantly, some Reclaimers were lowering their hands, their red glow fading. "Remember who we were," Lyra called out. "Before pride poisoned us, we were builders, teachers, explorers." More Reclaimers stopped attacking. Their leader screamed in rage, but his voice was drowned out by a new sound. Singing. The young Celestials were singing an ancient song in their musical language, a song about growth and change and hope. One by one, the remaining Reclaimers dropped their hands. Their harsh red glow softened into various colors. The leader looked around at his failing forces and, with a howl of defeat, fled into the night. Only a handful of his most devoted followers went with him. In the sudden quiet, Lyra turned to the former Reclaimers. "Welcome home, brothers and sisters." Their answering glow lit up the night sky like a newborn star. 6 months after the battle at the terraforming facility, Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the sunrise over Mars's newly transformed atmosphere. The red planet was becoming more habitable every day, thanks to the combined efforts of humans and Celestials. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Lyra asked, joining him at the window. Her blue glow reflected softly off the glass. "Hard to believe how much has changed," Marcus replied. "Not just Mars, but everything." He looked down at the facility below, where humans and Celestials worked side by side. The lab spaces glowed with all colors of the rainbow as they shared knowledge and ideas freely. "The integration program is spread to 30 countries now," Lyra said proudly. She no longer tried to sound humble when discussing achievements. Even some of the older Celestials are coming around. "How many former Reclaimers joined the program?" "Over 200. They make excellent teachers once they let go of their fear." Lyra smiled. "Though some still struggle with calling humans equals instead of lesser beings." Marcus laughed. "Baby steps." A group of young Celestials passed by, chatting excitedly with human colleagues. They wore Earth-style clothes decorated with traditional Celestial patterns. Their glows were bright and confident. "Remember when you first found me?" Lyra asked softly. "I thought being the servant was the only way to have worth. And now look at you, project director, cultural advisor, and leader of the Celestial rights movement." Lyra's glow brightened with pride, then dimmed slightly. "My father would have loved to see this. To know his dream of change wasn't impossible." "He did see it," Marcus said gently. "Through you." Their conversation was interrupted by a young human Celestial couple asking Lyra to perform their marriage ceremony. Mixed relationships were becoming more common, breaking down the last barriers between their peoples. Of course, Lyra agreed warmly. "Have you chosen your colors yet?" It was a new tradition. Human partners could choose to wear clothes that glowed with their Celestial partner's color during the ceremony. As the happy couple left, Marcus's tablet beeped. Another message from the few remaining hostile reclaimers, still hiding somewhere in deep space. They never give up, do they? He sighed. Their threats mean nothing now, Lyra said confidently. We're too strong together. She was right. The message was just angry words, with none of the power their threats once held. The old empire was truly dead, and something better had grown in its place. Oh, I almost forgot, Marcus said. The Mars Project Committee approved your proposal. We're officially naming the first terraform-ready zone New Horizon Valley. Lyra's glow pulsed with joy. A perfect name. A new horizon for both our peoples. They watched as a transport ship landed below, bringing another group of celestial refugees, not to hide, but to build new lives openly. You know, Marcus said thoughtfully, that first night, when you asked to be my servant, I almost walked away. I know. Most humans would have. Lyra touched the markings on her face that once marked her as noble. Now they were simply part of who she was, no better or worse than any other trait. Why didn't you? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because you looked lost. Not just homeless, but lost inside. I know that feeling. And now neither of us is lost. He smiled. We found something better than we were looking for. Lyra nodded. Not master and servant, but equals. Not savior and refugee, but friends. Partners, Marcus agreed. Below them, Mars's atmosphere shimmered with new life. Above them, stars twinkled with possibility. And around them, humans and celestials worked together to build a future neither species could have created alone. It all started with a simple act of kindness in a rainy alley. Sometimes, Lyra thought, the greatest journeys begin when we're brave enough to ask for help, and lucky enough to find someone brave enough to give it.